Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking today about unlocking mass adoption in Web3 and how we can do that for the Polkadot ecosystem more broadly. So my name's Chris. I'm from Adelaide in Australia, so I've made the trek here to talk to everybody here today. And here's a bit of a rundown of what I'm going to cover today. First, a bit of an introduction to Verida and a bit of our mission. An outline of mass adoption, like what's required and what's missing for us to reach mass adoption in this space. A part of that story is verifiable credentials. So I'll be talking about why credentials are so important, why identity is so important to this story. And then looking more broadly at personal data and how that ties in to help us take control of our data and use that for new use cases in Web3. And then lastly, I'll be talking more about our community, some of the technology that we've developed and some of the tools we are offering to developers. So if we start off and think about a core mission here, and this is a mission, I guess, that's broadly applicable to Web3, is that people must own and benefit from their personal data. We've seen for a long time the large centralized platforms have taken ownership of our data. Cloud computing has pushed our data to third parties, and they profit from that. They make use of that, and they have a monopoly over innovating around that data. We see a future where that data can be given back to the individual, and that can then be used to enhance the everyday experiences that we all have. By powering the interactions we have with businesses, organizations, and others in this ecosystem, we can enhance our interactions with others and those experiences on the whole. So I want to talk a little bit about DeFi. So if you think about decentralized finance, it's currently it's actually fallen a little bit lately, but it's a small drop in the ocean on the broader spectrum of traditional finance. If we look at consumer banking, under collateralized loans, mortgages, payments, those types of industries are not currently serviced by Web3. We have a huge insurance industry globally: health insurance, life insurance, asset insurance. And then more broadly in the capital markets, we have shares, bonds, other investments, etc. So the challenge that we have is how do we bring DeFi to the traditional finance sector and bridge that gap? If we look beyond just decentralized finance, we look at the traditional economy, we have fashion, we have advertising, we have pharmaceutical industry, and we have the food industry. These are all large parts of our global economy, and at the moment, Web3 is not touching those industries. And if we want to unlock mass adoption, we need to think about how we connect those pieces together. So if we think about this mass adoption story, we need to unlock all of DeFi. So we have the ability to unlock that traditional finance, all of the capital that lives there, and bring that across to the decentralized finance space. We need to look at Web2. We need to look at existing businesses, existing industries. How do we help them come across to Web3? How do we make it easy for those businesses? How do we make it easy for the users to transition across this Web3 ecosystem? A really important part of this story is the user experience. You have challenges today if you try to go to your mum or your grandma and explain to them what a seed phrase is and how they actually use some of these wallets and what are the different L1s and L2s and parachains. We need to make this simpler. And lastly, we see a future where tokenization of data, and we're talking about personal data that's important to us. We want to create new business models around that data, separate the data from the user and from the actual application itself. And we think by doing that, we can actually create brand new business models and innovative industries powering blockchain and also leveraging our personal data. So a key part of this story that's missing is identity. Blockchain crypto is anonymous by default, which is fantastic. It's a really good starting point. But for real-world products and services, we often have to identify ourselves or provide some information about who we are. A part of that is personal data. If I wanted to interact with a business today, I'll probably have to provide some information about myself. If I want to access a healthcare service, I have to provide some information about my health history. There's a really important missing piece in this story as well, which is the wallet. So at the moment, we have crypto wallets, which are obviously providing access to blockchains. Some of them have the ability to provide swaps, or they have a decentralized exchange built in, or perhaps they have the ability to view your NFTs. While that's really great, it's really just the beginning of what we see as the home of Web3 for a user. We see that it needs to incorporate not just crypto, but also data, identity, the ability to have decentralized messaging, and pulling that all together in a really simple user experience. The last piece is super important. So if we think about the blockchain and how it's evolved over the last few years, there's been an emergence of issues around interoperability, bridges, different ways of cross-chain communication. And it's been quite I guess, a challenge for the industry in terms of how it handles that interoperable problem. As we start to transition the Web3 technology stack to be more encompassing, we're going to have interoperability issues around data, around identity. So it's really important that we start to think about those problems today and how we can address those from the very beginning. So I'm going to touch on verifiable credentials. So a verifiable credential is a really important part of providing that decentralized identity, that real-world identity, and linking that in to solve some of these problems that will unlock the broader traditional finance capital to come into DeFi. So a credential could be a driver's license, a digital passport, and really importantly, it could be a KYC, a know your customer credential. If you've signed up to a crypto exchange, you would have gone through that process of doing a bit of facial recognition, providing your passport to prove who you are. And that's a part of being regulatory compliant for those centralized exchanges. That's coming to decentralized exchanges. It's coming to DeFi more broadly because of the change in regulations. So being able to provide a way to do this in a reusable way, in a trusted way, is going to be incredibly important moving forward. And verifiable credentials is the technology, the key to unlock this. They're emerging standard from the World Wide Web Consortium, and they're typically sent to a user's wallet that allows the user to have agency and control over this credential. As I mentioned, this is the key to unlocking capital from traditional finance. You can't have traditional finance bringing large sums of money into a DeFi unless there's this regulatory tick box in place. So just let's have a quick look at how these credentials work. So if I'm a user, I will go to an issuer and I will provide my passport, I'll prove my identity. That issuer, once they're satisfied that I'm not a terrorist and I'm not on a sanctions list and I am who I say I am, they will create one of these verifiable credentials and they'll send that to my wallet. And I'll be able to store that on my personal device and have agency and control over who I then share that with next. I will then share that with a credential verifier. So I'll share that with an exchange or a protocol or maybe even a centralized platform. And they'll be able to verify using that signature that's embedded in that credential that I am who I say I am and I can be trusted and I'm okay to do business with. Today, this is done in a fairly centralized way. So the credential that I receive is stored on my phone. Perhaps it's backed up on a centralized server. When I go and verify that credential with a third party, I normally use a centralized API or a centralized website to actually verify that. Obviously, that's not going to work in the decentralized world, so we have to be able to find a way to improve on this. So at Verida, what we've done is we've developed a private database storage infrastructure for Web3 that's suitable for storing private credentials in a decentralized way and a regulatory compliant way. So now I've got the flexibility to move my credentials across different devices and have agency and control over where they're stored. We're also working with a range of partners to explore how we can actually bring these on-chain in a privacy-preserving way so that we can have verification happening on-chain. And so that's really what we're doing over the next 3 to 6 months, is exploring how we can do that and unlock that for parachains on the Polkadot ecosystem. So how will this actually grow the broader ecosystem? So as I mentioned, the ability to reuse this credential. If I receive this credential, I can then go and use that across multiple parachains for different purposes. I've only had to do that process once. We're unlocking compliant DeFi. We're able to bring large amounts of that traditional capital that's sitting on the sidelines and actually bring that into these parachains and these different ecosystem projects. And really importantly, we introduce an ecosystem efficiency here. If as a user I can KYC once and use that across multiple chains, well, those chains can do a single integration and then they can be ticked from a regulatory compliance perspective in a very easy manner. And so they can focus on the core product or service that they're trying to deliver. So if we have a quick look at what that will look like, an end user will receive their credential and they can go and use that on one chain over here and they can go and use that on one chain over there, and they have the ability to just do that process once. So focus so far on credentials, but credentials are really just a subset of our personal data. It's obviously an example of our identity in a digital form, but there's a lot more to our personal data than that. There's financial statements, our banking history, credit scores, proof of financial assets, health records. We have records at different hospitals, different doctors. We have Fitbit data, Strava data. We have a whole range of health data in different systems all over the place. We have purchase history. We have emails with a history of purchases that we've made. We've got history sitting in Amazon and Shopify stores. We've got concert tickets and airline tickets. And there's this whole spectrum of other data, our videos, images, documents, etc. So broadly, we see this opportunity unfolding over the next 5 to 10 years where effectively Web3 can help disrupt all of the existing Web2 incumbents that control our data today. And at Verida, what we're looking to do is help effectively individuals pull their data out of those existing centralized platforms and take ownership of their data. Once they've got ownership and control, then they can share that data in a very consensual way, a very controlled way with emerging Web3 projects. And those projects can now create really innovative and exciting new products and services that aren't possible today. We can effectively unlock that innovation that's held in the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, and we can open that up to all of the Web3 builders globally. And if you think about decentralized finance and how that's helped pool large amounts of capital in one spot and allow programmers to innovate on that capital and create new financial products and services, we see that same process unfolding here. Once we unlock personal data and we unlock the keys to that data for developers to innovate on that, we're going to see an emergence of really interesting, hyper-personalized products and services powered by Web3. So as an example, we have the ability to have proof of financial assets. So I could be able to prove that I own a house or a car and tie that into new decentralized finance products. I could start to get my credit score and own that credit score. I could have the ability to prove that I'm a doctor. My brother-in-law recently graduated as a fully qualified doctor, and he got a ream of credit cards in the mail and invites to lower discounted home loans because he was deemed to be trustworthy to be able to pay off a loan. So this ability to bring real-world trust and reputation, bring that into the blockchain is going to unlock some more personalization. Decentralized social media, there's been a lot of talk with Elon Musk looking to purchase Twitter. The ability to pull all your data from existing platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, like Instagram, take ownership of that and then share that consensually with new disruptive Web3 alternatives. The ability to do that in a really seamless way is going to be another really helpful unlock for some of these emerging platforms. And if we take this a bit further and we think about what could a personalized healthcare experience be if an algorithm can run over my healthcare data and provide personalized health recommendations, perhaps recommend a decentralized health insurance product that's perfectly tailored to me and who I am. Think about the ability to have an AI algorithm that runs over all of your history and be able to guide you through your career, recommend people that you should connect with, events that you should attend, where the trends are going and where you could fit in perfectly. This is the sorts of things that can eventually evolve once we have control of our data and share this in a consensual way with new innovative products and services. There are some challenges here. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, this stuff's going to magically appear. So if we have personal data, it's sitting off-chain. It's sitting in a private, secure way. And we have to find the suitable ways to bring that on-chain and retain that privacy and security. Do we look at zero-knowledge proofs? What are the tools that are available to us to make this a viable and secure system? How do we anchor this to real-world trust? How do I know that a signature actually belongs to an organization that I can trust? How can we tokenize this? How do we help people unlock data and then create new business models around data and tie that into the blockchain? There's a sustainability piece that needs to exist here for this to have longevity. Revocation, how do I say that somebody's a doctor and then say that they're disqualified and do that in a trusted way? And then lastly, and this is a really important piece, how do we have private storage? How do we ensure that this data is secure but accessible when needed by an individual? So we've recently just announced our Verifiable Credentials Incubator. We're bringing together a whole range of projects that are innovating on the technology side of these problems. We're working with DeFi projects, and we're also working with Web2 companies that are wanting to start being involved in Web3 and issue credentials to unlock these really important use cases around identity, credentialing, and personal data. And I encourage you to reach out if you're interested in participating in this incubator program that we have. In addition to that, we've built out a range of infrastructure, and we're looking to really move forward with this technology as fast as we possibly can, because there's so much opportunity here that's sitting in front of us in Web3. So at Verida, we've built the first self-custody wallet that combines both a crypto wallet, but also a data wallet for users. It ties in the ability to have a decentralized identity that's anonymous by default. It has the ability to have credentials so you can have a real-world identity, and shortly you'll then be able to bring that on-chain in a privacy-preserving way. And it has a decentralized messaging so that you can provide consent to how your data is used, share credentials with DeFi and various decentralized apps. And so we think that this is the future of what a wallet will look like. This has become the home, the digital home for individuals in Web3, by bringing together all of these important pieces and moving beyond just the crypto and token piece of the Web3 story. To facilitate this, we've developed the Verida private database network infrastructure. So if you think of IPFS, if you're familiar with IPFS, which is based on torrenting technology, it's really great for public data. It's really great for images and videos and sort of static content, but it's not a database. It's not designed for private data and from its architecture. And so what we've done is we've built the first Web3 infrastructure that's a proper database. It's designed specifically for large amounts of personal data, and it has a really carefully considered permissioning and consent model that's going to be suitable for large-scale, broad applications around personal data. We've put together a verifiable credential starter kit. So for DeFi projects, for any project really that's interested in credentials and being able to include that in their solution, we've got a starter kit that is available and can be played with on our website. We are also collaborating with a number of other projects that are doing a lot of really interesting innovation around credentials. So our starter kit is not so much a lock-in in what we're doing, it's actually a ability to tie into this broader ecosystem of projects that are innovating on credentials. We've also put together the personal data on-ramp, and this is something I'm personally really excited about, because what this is an open API framework, and it allows individuals to basically on their phone connect to an existing API, so for instance Facebook or Twitter, and pull all of their data down and take ownership of that. So this is a really important part of that story of how do we pull data from Web 2 and give that to the individual. We've actually kick-started that process already today. And then once I have that data, I can consensually share that with different applications. And we have an end-to-end example of that in our developer documentation, and that's something that people can start to play with today. At this point in time, we've got an examples here of Twitter and Facebook, and that's just a starting point. We're actually opening this API up to developers. So any developer will be able to create an adapter to plug in to any existing consumer API. And so tomorrow, that'll include things like our financial data, our health data, credit scores, any type of API that an individual can authorize access to and pull data from. It'll be possible to connect that into our open API framework. And we'll start this process of migrating data away from these centralized platforms and making that accessible into these new Web3 projects. The last piece, and this is a very important piece, this is something that we're collaborating with on a number of levels with multiple partners, is this personal data bridge. The ability to take some of this personal information, this credential, maybe some health data, maybe some financial history, and being able to bring that on-chain in a zero-knowledge way. And this will be the really important unlock, because that will then mean that any smart contract can effectively leverage personal data to make informed decisions. And this is going to be a really significant unlock, I think, for the Web3 ecosystem and for a range of brand new innovative products and services that can challenge the existing Web2 industries. So thank you very much. If you're interested to learn more, you can scan that QR code or visit our website. And I look forward to seeing all the exciting projects that people start to build using this new personal data technology. Thank you very much.